Well, this morning, our talk is called The Sacred Pause. And so, first of all, for those of you who did not read the weekly newsletter e-blast or last week's announcement, this talk is not about your beloved pet companions. It's not about kitty cat paws or puppy paws. Those are sacred to you. I do know that. But this pause is not about those paws. And it would be too awkward now in the sanctuary to leave. So you're stuck. The sacred pause. The quality of our lives, which are absolutely filled to overflowing with activities and obligations and commitments and schedules. The quality of our lives is heightened, increased exponentially when we remember to stop, to pull back, to hesitate, to pause. Now, our society appears to not really value these timeouts. You know, in our early school days, tests were timed. The first one to raise their hand is the one called upon. It's almost as if we grow up on the edge of anxiety, competing for attention, for grades, for accolades, for awards. Recognition that we are led to believe must be earned and comes from the outside in. I can remember when my children were very, very small and they would get hurt or upset. I would place my hands out to them with my palms up, and they would come and place their little hands in mine, palm down. And I would give them my full attention to tell me whatever it was that they were in the need of sharing. Now, I don't know what caused me to do that, to take that action, but it felt right. I was asking them, in a sense, to stop what was upsetting them and to take a break, to take a breath, to remove themselves from the external stimuli and to simply be with me in that moment, to let me hear them, allow me to understand their dilemma. Now, if we tried that, to simulate that in the business world, people would think we were way too hipster, a little too touchy-feely. Yet at times, think how you might benefit if someone did that for you. Turned to you, gave you their absolute, undivided attention, calmed and centered you by holding your hand, sat with you until you were able to put into words your thoughts, explain your feelings, just be. Now, my dad was a master of the sacred pause. He was not a religious man, didn't take to churches, and wasn't interested in a relationship with God. He did, however, love nature, and he carried an energy about him that drew people to him. He had a very centered, peace-filled vibration. He was curious about life. He was open to learning. And that energy was sensed by everyone, friends, relatives, strangers, babies, little children, animals. All were drawn to my father and his peaceful presence. You know people like that. You are drawn to being with them. Perhaps you are a person like that, because I know that about many of you. Now, we can, in direct contradiction, go through life almost on fast forward. Get in the fast lane, get fast food, pay with a debit or a charge card because it's faster than cash. Next day delivery, DoorDash, Uber Eats to bring your order right to your door. Deposit your checks online. No need to go to the bank for your business. Texting is faster than email, faster than a phone call, which could become lengthy if you actually talk to a person. I'm not saying that any of these things are bad or wrong, but they are simply examples of how our lives have been structured to do things quickly, uber quick. Our personal speed dial gets set on high, and we are hell-bent to get things done. Yes, I said hell-bent to get things done. And what does that do to our psyche? What effect might that have on our interactions with others? How might our connections be impacted? What about the effect this might have on our own bodies? And what role does our ego have in this uber quick environment, the society that we live? Well, our ego protects us and tries to keep us safe. It does this by pointing out everything around us that is potentially unsafe, that which we need to fear, at least according to the vigilante ego. This represents mine. This is Bella, the stuffed dragon. Got little wings here, got horns, big old eyes. Look at those eyes. Now, don't get all, isn't that cute and cuddly on me? She is not. She only looks like that to disarm me, to make me think she's harmless, like she's my friend, wanting to hang out. Well, our egos are truly neither harmless nor harmful on their own. It all depends on how much we let them rule our world, our thoughts, our judgments. The ego is kind of like an engine, like a motor. It just runs, and it can be an impetus that drives us to great achievement. Or it can be the motor that simply runs without direction, running into people, crashing into walls, driving over cliffs. We need to be the one in the driver's seat, for the ego is necessary, it's even beneficial. But the ego thinks it is alone, that it alone is responsible for our well-being. We need to be in charge, to gently set the ego aside and give it a break at times. Now, the ego doesn't like this and will persist, the rascal. We must be strong in our conviction, in our belief, in our own wisdom and judgment. For in our fast-paced world, an unchecked ego will sense danger when it isn't even there. It will evaluate a threat when a threat does not exist. As an example, if you ever had someone say something to you, something you didn't quite hear, and you immediately determined that what they said was negative, some sort of an insult or a slight. And when you asked them to repeat themselves, it was nothing like that. Maybe they said, "Do you want to leave now or wait?" What? Did she just say something about my weight? You see how we go there? Can anyone identify with that response? Just this week, my husband, Denny, and I are having coffee in our sunroom like we do every morning before we start our day. Now, Denny was talking about a subject, and he said something like, you could ask anyone at the gym about this. And then he revised it to, well, I could ask, meaning himself. And I immediately, in my ego mind, jumped to, is he saying I don't go to the gym enough? Which, by the way, is absolutely true. But is he saying that? That's where my mind went. Now, in the milliseconds, while my ego mind is analyzing this and getting ready to defend myself, because that's what the ego does when unchecked, Denny continues talking because he doesn't know the dialogue that's going on in my head. And he says something like, well, I say I because guys are always talking about this. Probably women don't talk about this as much. He was just saved by my irrational potential response. I was saved by my irrational potential response, which had already taken root within me, causing a chemical reaction that fast. When we even start to get irritated or stressed or thinking we need to defend ourselves, even in our own mind, adrenaline or epinephrine is released. Adrenaline is the hormone released when your brain perceives a potential threat. And if this perceived threat continues, the heart rate increases. Arterial tension and testosterone production increases. And cortisol, which is the hormone that helps us with stress, decreases. And the left hemisphere of the brain becomes more stimulated. Now, the left side of the brain is considered the side for logic, where the right is for creativity and intuitive nature. So even a slight boost temporarily of adrenaline is enough to impact our bodies. Scientists tell us that over time, persistent surges of adrenaline can damage your blood vessels, increase your blood pressure, elevate your risk of heart attacks or stroke. It can also result in anxiety, weight gain, headaches, and insomnia. Reacting even only internally in a negative way repeatedly over time is bad for our health, our physical health, emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health. What is it about us that assumes the negative, if indeed that's where we go with it? Yes, the ego. Sensing a threat where none exists. And it can become a downward spiral, intensifying each time we assume the negative, assert the negative, speak the negative, a downward spiral. We can allow ourselves, however, to pause, to intentionally refuse to go down that road of assuming the worst, to pull back, to hesitate, and allow ourselves to be fully present without fear of attack. And I know that can be difficult when maybe you're in the presence of someone who has a history of saying not nice things to you. It's much harder to give them the benefit of the doubt, but it is possible. Do we really want to go through life being trigger happy with our mind, with our assumptions, looking for slights and insults, exclusion? That is victimhood to the max, and I am not interested in living in victimhood, and neither are you. An unhealed person can find offense in pretty much anything someone says. A healed person understands that the actions of others has absolutely nothing to do with them. And each day we get to decide which one we will be, unhealed or healed. Seek and you will find. When we are looking for negativity, we will find it, and it will wear us out emotionally and in every other way. When we are looking for the good, we will find it. The Apostle Paul, in one of his letters to his community in Philippi, said this: "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." We are to keep our focus in the positive direction. We are able to do this when we pause, when we choose to remain neutral until we more fully understand a situation. Pausing is truly sacred. It is giving space for our divine self, our highest self, to respond or participate or to simply be. Have you ever been asked a question that took you by surprise? I can remember well into my adulthood years feeling like at times I was on the spot when someone would ask me a question that was very personal or awkward, because I was raised a good, well-behaved Indiana girl who would politely answer questions that were asked of me. I was never taught that I had other options. I had to learn that for myself. I learned that I could respectfully pull back, give myself a moment, and respond to an overly personal question in many ways. I could say, "Why do you ask?" Or, "That's something I usually share with someone I know a little bit better than I know you yet." Or, "Why is that important to you?" I also learned that I could less respectfully simply ignore the question as if I hadn't heard it, deflect the question, or even laugh and say something like, "I really don't know you that well," or make light of it without diminishing the other person. I learned that I am in control of how I respond. I choose my reaction. I am not at the mercy of another simply because they ask a question that I find inappropriate. You are not at the mercy of another. You are in control to choose how you respond or if you respond at all. That's back to self-mastery, empowerment, confidence. And we looked at that divine aspect, exploring the divine masculine last week. And Lori referred to the same quality when looking at the power of power, having dominion over our thoughts. We are in control of how we respond. What do you do when you receive a not so friendly communication, a voicemail, an email, a letter? You don't have to respond right away. You don't have to respond at all. Give yourself the opportunity to take it to love and to respond from a centered, grounded space of love. Whatever is true, noble, right, pure, whatever is lovely, admirable. Think about these things. The sacred pause gives us the space to remember, to choose wisely from a space of love and compassion. At times in our lives, we might need that sacred pause to be expanded, to be a time of self-care, of retreat from our world, to reflect. In the Gospels of both Mark and Luke, we are told that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Our elder brother, the one who shows us how to be in this world, stepped aside from the world and prayed. He took a divine break. He paused from his travels and his companions, his teachings, his healings. Jesus took time to self-nurture, to feed his soul. And so should we. And I don't say should much. I don't like to should on others. And yet, as students of truth and as believers in our 5 basic unity principles, we know the power of affirmative prayer and meditation, the power of our thoughts and on action, living out loud our truths. We have a responsibility, a commandment to love one another. And to do that, to accomplish that daily, hourly, minute by minute, we must be as grounded in divine love as humanly possible. We must be as grounded in divine love as humanly possible, which means we must self-nurture and feed our souls so that we can be a grounded space of love for ourselves, of love for others. The sacred pause, slowing down our knee-jerk reactions, holding a space in our hearts to allow for the imperfection of others and the imperfection of ourselves, our perfect flaws. Sometimes Spirit takes a storm and creates a beautiful respite to center, heal, regroup, and grow us into what is creating in the next moment. We see this in our nation right now with the latest Supreme Court ruling. A storm. We pause. We hesitate from responding from a space of fear or anger. If need be, to spend some time in that space, feel what we're feeling. I've had to do that with myself this week. I've spent time in disbelief and grief and anger. Some of that anger directed at myself for being so naive, never truly believing that a decision such as this, without a safety net to ensure the equity for gender health care and decisions would be made at this level of government. This is not a political issue. It's not party specific. This is reproductive rights, a moral commitment to the idea that reproductive care is health care and is essential to the well-being of individuals and families. Each of us, guided by our moral values, our religious beliefs, by our personal experiences perhaps, are touched by this decision. Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. responded to this situation by saying, without respect for freedom of choice, peace is not possible. And today's daily word, I am love in action. My heart breaks, and yours may too, for the women and the men and the families caught in this storm. For it is truly that. I intend to be part of that ongoing struggle to center and heal and regroup and grow into what is creating in this next now moment. Let us allow our minds and our hearts to be unclouded from our initial responses, to turn within, seek, and we will find, and we will know what is ours to do. I invite you today to slow down, to unbusy yourself for a time, to let your mind behold whatever is true and noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, and to take a moment to think about such things. Admire them, revel in them, hold them in your heart, and send that vibration of love back to everyone and everything you encounter. Write a self-care prescription for yourself. You might take a technology break once a month, no TV, iPad, phone, or computer for 24 hours or 3 days. Fast from the news. Set aside time to dig in the garden, hands in the dirt, or perhaps feet in the sand. Plan a gathering with your dearest friends. Schedule a retreat just for you annually. You know what prescription is best for you. What and how will reinvigorate and refresh you, empowering you to be you in the world. Walk the path of the sacred pause. It is the task for each of us. As with everything in life, it is always an inside job, starting first within us to change our world. We need you, and the world needs us. And so it is.